Hello everyone out in the void, I'm Zach, this is the Shaken Fist, and today we're doing the final 5 fucking questions, and then I don't have to talk about this cunt for a while, and I'll be so happy, because, you know, I've filmed all this in a row, and I really thought that after at least 10 questions I would have been somewhat believing by now, and after 20, not one spark. I am astonished, I am just, you know, I am all the things. I'm exhausted, mentally, though, because God is this boring. But hey, I make it fun, so that's cool, right? So like, subscribe, do the commenting, you know, pretty please. Help the channel out. I am but a small channel.
So smooth.
Feed the algorithm, please. Pretty please. I'll come over, I'll touch you on the knee, I'll look you in the eye, and I'll tell you how special you are. Just press the fucking button, okay? Thank you. Pretty please.
In 2020, I had 10 questions for atheists, and the response was pretty big. I put my reaction to the videos that atheists made in response to it into a playlist on this channel that you can check out, and I still get answers to those questions to this day. But now, as 2025 is upon us, I've got 5 questions for atheists in 2025, given certain events and current debates in the worldview discussion arena. If you're an atheist, I want to know what your answer is to these questions. So let's just jump right in. Question 1. Cameron Bertuzzi over at Capturing Christianity recently caused a lot of controversy by saying he no longer takes atheism seriously.
Oh no!
Cameron Bertuzzi over at Capturing Christianity no longer takes atheism seriously.
Whatever shall I do? I am certainly doomed.
The reason why I don't take atheism seriously any longer is because even if we accept the atheist's strongest argument, it still wouldn't prove atheism.
We have these really powerful arguments, at least from our perspective, on the theist side, like arguments from fine-tuning. But yes, there are arguments on the other side that are meant to show that it's unlikely God exists, or that God does not exist, like arguments from evil or divine hiddenness arguments. And so this puts us in an interesting spot. We've got arguments for and against. But as Philip Goff suggested recently, perhaps you have a God of limited power. This would mean you have really powerful arguments from God on the theist side, like the fine-tuning arguments, but then the arguments from evil and divine hiddenness no longer become powerful arguments for atheism. Instead, what they are arguments for a limited God, but not arguments for no God. And so there's no reason to take atheism seriously, someone might decide. So the question is Cameron wrong? And if so, why is he wrong?
Or I could personally not give a shit if he takes us seriously or not, because he doesn't think our arguments are strong. I mean, I don't take any of you seriously because you use arguments that don't even point to your God.
Perhaps you have a God of limited power. This would mean you have really powerful arguments from God on the theist side, like the fine-tuning arguments, but then the arguments from evil and divine hiddenness no longer become powerful arguments for atheism. Instead, what they are arguments for a limited God, but not arguments for no God.
You know, come on. The examples you use, they don't even say that your God is the God that's real, right? And the things that convince me that you're full of shit, right, don't come from arguments. An argument from divine hiddenness. It's not an argument. It's just people feeling God not talking to them. You know what I mean? It's not an argument. That's a personal experience thing. It's not even, personal experience isn't proof. It's just what deconverted me. What convinces me now is the lack of evidence of most of the stuff that happens in the early Bible. No, there's nothing about, there's no proof of Abraham. There's no proof, there's not one shred of evidence of fucking anything for ages in the Bible. Like, the closest thing you've got to proof of David is, well, we've got a potsherd that says, hey, by the way, it says House of David, right? Like, come on. Why the fuck am I supposed to give a shit? Arguments is dumb, right? Arguments are just philosophical twaddle. Proof is what matters. That's why you lot just keep on like, but your philosophical arguments aren't up to stuff. And it's like, I don't give a shit, right? I want physical proof of your claims. That's what science does. It doesn't rely on just argumentation. It demands proof. And if you don't like it, I don't give a shit. If you're not going to take it seriously, I don't give a shit. Why should anyone give a shit if you guys take us seriously? To be honest, it was just all that is just a video to virtual signal to his audience about how big and hard he is against and how stoic he is against the atheisms. Like, it's pathetic, kind of, really.
Perhaps you have a God of limited power. This would mean you have really powerful arguments from God on the theist side, like the fine-tuning arguments, but then the arguments from evil and divine hiddenness no longer become powerful arguments for atheism. Instead, what they are arguments for a limited God, but not arguments for no God.
Like, what? Do we have to all come out and make a video actually saying how little we actually take you seriously? We take the religion seriously because it's an entity, but you people as a person in your arguments is dumb. That's why we laugh at you. Oh no, the Catholic doesn't take me seriously. He's only pissed off that we don't take them seriously anymore because, like, you know, they're Catholics and they do all the child fucking, you see? You know, all the child fucking that is rampant in the Catholic Church and the Crimen Solicitates document that allowed it to happen and facilitated their movement and made, like, the Nazi Pope move him around. You know, when he was the head of the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith. You know, all that stuff. You know, all that. You can't speak to anyone about the church, what the church has done to you, because God sends you to hell immediately and no one has to hear it. It doesn't matter. From your lips to his ears, you're fucked. He doesn't take me seriously anymore. A member of that religion. Oh no.
Question 2. Some atheist creators seem to think that the recent presidential election was so important that it changes the way they should do things on their channels. Watch.
I am going to be changing things up on YouTube quite a bit, to the extent that I'm not going to be doing this channel anymore. So I don't think the timing is lost on anybody here, that this is happening, you know, shortly after the last political election. I'm not going to lie, very, very distraught and a little freaked out by the results, not just who won, but the extent by which they won. And that does get us all thinking about our future and our safety and what things are going to look like going forward. Basically, what that did is that just jolted me. For a while, I just kind of been on the treadmill doing what I was doing. I wanted to get off at some point and doing something different. And so this election and the little jolt that it gave me just kind of pushed me off the algorithm treadmill and gave me the prompt to just do something a little different.
I am shifting gears a little bit here and widening the lens, so to speak. And I want to talk about it because I've changed my mind since my last video. I posted a kind of off the cuff video of my thoughts and feelings post-election. And I said that the political conversation, I didn't want it to set the tone for future videos. And I didn't want to get into politics. And I wanted to stay focused on what I was doing. But I changed my mind.
Why do you think that this election was so impactful to atheists in this way? What did it reveal about the culture?
What it revealed is that atheists care more about the here and now. So when, you know, like a crisis, like American fascism creep that is so strong that you have the oligarchies, billionaires, literally, Elon Musk literally paying people for votes, like 1 million at a time. Like, the oligarchic fascism is, you know, strong right now. You see, when he made this video, there was a lot of the cuts didn't happen, you know, Doge hadn't gutted everything, you know what I mean? Like, you know, he hadn't put tariffs on anything and crashed the economy. You know, maybe stuff like that. Maybe, actually, letting a narcissistic fucking sociopath into power, when he's going, I'm going to, like, make sure that no one ever gets elected again except me, because, you know, he's even going to his fucking conferences with, like, things like he's Julius Caesar, okay? Like, fuck off. If just because I like this version of fascism, it's benevolent fascism to me, like, fuck off. If you can't see it, you're a disingenuous cunt. How about that? It's just about the culture. No, it's about the fascism that actually is being brought in by bro culture because people have listened to Andrew Tate. You know what I mean? Because why not be a dick, right? Like, how about people online who actually figured out how to control people but through parasocial relationships and like online courses, and then went after like, fucking losers and lonely people and conspiracy theorists and religious people, because they're easily led and they're just crying out for someone to like them. Maybe that's why.
Question 3. Many atheists are determinists, meaning that they don't believe in free will, at least not of the sort that many people think of when they hear the term free will. They believe that the past history of the universe is like to a billion trains of dominoes or trillions of chains of dominoes that result in the past history of the cosmos, the formation of your physical body, your past life experiences, your neural structure, and the firings of neurons in your brain that are your choices, but could not have been otherwise. On the other hand, maybe some atheists think that we have what's called libertarian freedom, the notion that whatever you ended up choosing, you really could have done otherwise. So here's my question. If you're a determinist, how do we hold people morally culpable for things they do that could not have been otherwise, given the history of the universe? And if it is the case that you believe in free will of the libertarian sort, as an atheist, how is that possible without God? Now, just as a note, there are many determinists who will say they are compatibilists. And what that means is not that libertarian freedom is compatible with determinism. Compatibilists hold that determinism is true. It's just that we can hold people morally culpable in spite of the determinism. That moral culpability is possible, is compatible with determinism. So it doesn't answer the question. I'm asking that question. How, if you're a determinist? How is it that people are morally culpable given that their choices could not have been otherwise? And if you believe in free will, how is that possible without God?
It's the fun with philosophical thinking, right? Well, that you could only think in these certain ways because these words of this umbrella, right? Well, how about, actually, it's not deterministic. It's not like everything was written out in stone from the beginning of time to make you do this now, right? The universe is reactionary. So, matter coalesces after whatever the quantum event is that we call the Big Bang. Everything's hot, dense plasma. It cools down, it starts to coalesce, and the matter makes, holes in the gravity wells that makes things spin around. It's reactionary. It's not deterministic, right? So when we come to free will, we are reactionary, motherfucker. We react to things. It's not deterministic. It's a reaction. The idea, everything was written first to begin with. No, it wasn't. Right? Your stomach tells your brain you're hungry. I'm being very simple here, right? So you go, I've got something to eat, right? But the thing is when you get sentience, the bit where you can think and you could decide for yourself, you see, when you have, because you have your subconscious thought and your conscious thought. And not every animal has conscious thought, although we are finding out that maybe a lot more of them have them than we thought. So they can decide to do things, they can decide to ignore it. The thing is we have a little of both. You have your instinctual thinking that makes you do stuff, and then you have your non-instinctual thinking, because it's like your subconscious thought and your conscious thought. It's like a man riding an elephant, and the elephant's your subconscious thought, and the man's your conscious thought. And your conscious thought can't control and tell your subconscious what to do, but the subconscious can control the man, you see. The man can try and guide the elephant to go certain ways, and it can decide not to do that because it's too much of a behemoth, you see. So actually, the idea that we can have free will without God happens because we have brains, right, that have canyons in them and deep canyons. They are smoothing though, right? And with those and we have a larynx that allows vocalizations. So the combination of the two, of learning at a young age how to speak, then gives me words to reason with instead of instinctual feelings, right? You see? And then I can reason better with myself and I can make decisions with myself. And that doesn't take God. It takes firing neurons. Do you know how we know this? Do you want to know how we know this? It's a very simple answer. We know this because you Christian fucks, when you get power, what do? You burn books, don't you? You burn books because knowledge is power, right? Words is knowledge. And words are how you think. If you're one of the half of the people that think in words, and some of the people don't. But you know what I mean, right? So you think in language. If you control people's language, you control their thought, right? And you know this. That's why Christians do this. That's why Christians say you can't say these words. That's why Christians say you can't read these books. Because they might give you the thought and notions with their words to do things that they don't want with your free will. Because you have read something. You see? Words, my friend, are what give us free will. That's why Christians don't like them. Unless those words are empowering God. Otherwise, the words are evil.
Number 4, Richard Dawkins has long been praised by atheists as one of the 4 horsemen of the new atheism. But recently, he's caused some controversy with some comments about the trans debate. For many atheists, he's right about science when it comes to young earth creationism versus evolution, but he's wrong when it comes to this current cultural debate. Do you personally think he's right or wrong, and why?
I don't care. He's not in the biological field anymore. He's retired. He writes books. I don't give a flying fuck. What I care about is his work in mimetic structures. Like, if an old man doesn't like trans people and he finds it weird and wants to talk about it, whatever. Like, I don't care. He was one of the 4 horsemen of the new atheism. Yeah, whatever. Right? He was part of the four horsemen of new atheism. Not because he was pro-trans. It was because of his work in mimetic structures, you see? And how, mimetics actually... like how you get the memes, right? Like, try reading this fucking Selfish Gene and actually see why Dawkins is important. That's why. Like, whatever. There's like... Hitchens was the only good one, in my opinion. I don't give a flying fuck. So, whatever. Plus, me and Hitchens disagreed on stuff. It's weird. It's almost like when you respect someone's work for something, you don't have to like everything else they do. You see? Like, maybe I don't think he should have had his award taken away from him because it was in the past. Right? But also, I don't give a flying fuck. It's possible to hold multiple views about the same person. I know it's hard for you Christians, right? Because, like, you think, actually, you think in a term of absolutes. They're all evil or they're all good, right? But everybody's in the middle ground, right? Because you think, well, we're all sinners, so we're all bad, right? When actually, we're all in the middle, you see? And it's just people have been slowly getting convinced that actually being selfish is probably the best, so it brings out in the worst in us. Because the rich keep on overinflating prices and they keep on making more money for themselves and leaving less for everyone else. So people fight each other, and that's a different topic, but you saw where I'm going. Fuck you.
Now, for this last question, there's a little bit of setup. Here's a quote from Robin Collins about the fine-tuning of the universe, and I'd like to know what your reaction to it is. Suppose we went on a mission to Mars and found a domed structure in which everything was set up just right for life to exist. The temperature, for example, was set to around 70 degrees Fahrenheit and the humidity was at 50%. Moreover, there was an oxygen recycling system, an energy gathering system, and a whole system for the production of food. Put simply, the domed structure appeared to be a fully functioning biosphere. What conclusion would we draw from finding this structure? Would we draw the conclusion that it just happened to form by chance? Certainly not. Instead, we would unanimously conclude that it was designed by some intelligent being. Why would we draw this conclusion? Because an intelligent designer appears to be the only plausible explanation for the existence of the structure. That is the only alternative explanation we can think of, that the structure was formed by some natural process, seems extremely unlikely. Of course, it is possible that, for example, through some volcanic eruption, various metals and other compounds could have formed and then separated out in just the right way to produce the biosphere, but such a scenario strikes us as extraordinarily unlikely, thus making this alternative explanation unbelievable. The universe is analogous to such a biosphere, according to recent findings in physics. Almost everything about the basic structure of the universe, for example, the fundamental laws and parameters of physics and the initial distribution of matter and energy, is balanced on a razor's edge for life to occur. As the eminent Princeton physicist Freeman Dyson notes, quote, "There are many lucky accidents in physics. Without such such accidents, water could not exist as liquid, chains of carbon atoms could not form complex organic molecules, and hydrogen atoms could not form breakable bridges between molecules. In short, life as we know it would be impossible.
Right. I've been trying to let him get through his whole fucking spiel the entire time, but this one's too long, and the next guy says dumb shit as well. If I went to Mars, a planet that has no breathable atmosphere, and no forms of anything that would be even remotely lifelike, and like even has standing water or livable temperatures, if I found a dome with it in, then yes, I would think that it was man-made in some way. Well, not man-made, but it was made by a person. Like a thing, right? I wouldn't think it was natural because it doesn't concord with the rest of fucking nature around it. What a stupid example. Like, oh, Earth is so different than the rest of the universe. Really? Well, most of the universe is basically emptiness, right? So let's ignore that because if it's nothing, it's nothing. But then there's loads of habitable... We found other possible habitable planets, right? So we can't pretend like Earth is the only place this might happen on, right? So if there's other planets that might be habitable, the idea that actually space is random in quotation marks, right, actually has more basis in truth, doesn't it? Because then the randomness goes, that planet's empty, that planet's empty, that planet's empty, that planet has life on it, that one's empty, because it's almost like we have... Like, it even goes, oh, well, you know, it's analogous to the universe because, you know, the Big Bang happened and it makes this stuff. You don't know that. You don't know it. Like, you don't know what the fucking start was and how it comports with all this stuff. That's just bullshit. The idea that, like, you know, oh, well, a quantum event happened, so we made a gravity well was made as matter coalesced, and the nebulas formed, which were hot, dense gas clouds that started to form into more solid, as gravity started to, you know, as things started to spin because they gained mass, they formed holes in the gravity wells, and the gas came together to form solid matter, and then it started ejecting out stars when they became too heavy, and the spin and the gravitational centrifugal force would fire them out, and they'd be fired out with matter, and then there'd be flat discs. It'd almost look like an egg, and it'd be like an accretion disk, right? And those accretion disks would slowly coalesce into planets like we see now. And we can see these planets in loads of different solar systems, right? Because the Earth, like I said before, it's all reactionary. It's all reactions to, you know, gravitational forces and stuff of that sort, right? And like mass and vectors and blah, 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 right? So, how about we stop saying the whole fucking thing's fine-tuned because the whole thing was reactionary to begin with. If it was fine-tuned, there wouldn't be a need for a Big Bang. He could just create it as is because it would be finely fucking tuned. What the fuck does it need all this other shit to get to the state that it's in? And in fact, the fact that the universe used to be in a different state tells you actually the universe isn't always finely tuned. Doesn't it? Because it actually tells you that actually during inflation, there was a period after the quantum event of the Big Bang where the universe was too hot to actually form like neutrons and electrons and stuff. So actually, the universe actually can change state. So if the universe can change states, it means that the universe isn't finely tuned for anything because its state changes through time. Which is not like going to a fucking planet that has no habitable area on it and finding a dome that is. Considering we know that biodomes exist on Earth. Because we've made them. Things existing don't infer something that we can't experience existing. Because, well, you see the state it exists, he put it that way, right?
Now, he goes on to say the following. A few examples from the literature of this fine-tuning are listed below. 1. If the initial explosion of the Big Bang had differed in strength by as little as 1 part in 10 to the 60th, the universe would have either quickly collapsed back on itself or expanded too quickly for stars to form.
And how the fuck do you know that, Mr. Pull Numbers out of your ass? You don't know. We don't know what the Big Bang is. It could just be a colloquial term and not be a bang at all. It could be almost like it could be a bunch of quantum fluctuations. Dun da da. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know any of the numbers for that event in the slightest. So pretending to know that if it was different by 1 power 10 to the 60th power that it wouldn't work, you're pulling it out your ass, son. You don't know jack about it, and pretending like you do does nothing but show exactly how fallacious you are and exactly how little you actually know about the science you're purporting to try and own us with. It's pathetic, and it's sad, and that's why we pick on you, you see? It's why I make little videos like this, and I go, nah, because I find you a pitiful man, to be honest, and I find these questions to be pitiful, and to be honest, it's like, you guys just keep on doing the same shit over and over and over and over and over again and expecting it to have a different fucking result. Like, how many fucking times do you cunts have to throw the fine-tuning argument at us for us to not give a shit, for you to go, oh, but again, the fine-tuning argument. This is why I don't give a shit about your philosophical arguments. Your fine-tuning argument does not point to Yahweh, right? If you can say point out how the fine-tuning argument points to Yahweh, I'll give a flying fuck, right? Because what? I already say, yeah, there might be a deistic God, right? So what? What? Where does that leave us? Because what? You're giving the fine-tuning argument, and you're using a Christian talking about the fine-tuning argument, so obviously it's talking about Christianity? Like, it doesn't point to that in the slightest. So stop pretending that it does. Especially when you've got a bunch of atheists that go, well, I could probably believe in a deistic God. And then using arguments that point to a God, but not yours. And then wonder why we're not impressed. Like, do you ever think that stupidity like this is why we don't believe people like you?
In either case, life would be impossible. As John Jefferson Davis points out, an accuracy of 1 part in 10 to the 60th can be compared to firing a bullet at a 1-inch target on the other side of the observable universe, 20 billion light years away, and hitting the target.
No, it isn't. That's just fucking dumb. That's just saying stupid shit. Oh, you don't know the parameters for any of it. You don't know the parameters for if I fired this gun, because it would keep on going unless it hit something, because there's no. I don't need to explain this. Whatever, right? The point is you're pulling numbers out of your ass, okay? You're pulling numbers out of your ass to dazzle people, and you know this. Like, you know that you know nothing about what you're talking about. You know that you're just taking some guy saying it, and because you kind of like him, it must be this way, right? Like, why the fuck should we take this argument seriously? Like, stop it. Like I said before, just stop it. Fine-tuning argument is dumb. The second you know anything about fucking the universe and science, you actually go, no, this is a dumb argument because the universe is reactionary. It's not prescribed in the slightest. You don't know what you're talking about. Stop it. That's why you're just using big numbers and incomprehensible things and things that sound impressive because, most of the time, actually, you're trying to play to a bunch of people that have no knowledge of any of this in the slightest, and you're just dazzling them. Oh, look, it's so big. I can't believe these people believe this instead. It takes more faith to be an atheist. All right, then. Let's talk about the proof of the flood, then, shall we? Let's talk about how much of Genesis you take as literal fact and how much you take of it as allegory, okay? The creation story in particular, shall we? But no, it's all stupid philosophical arguments because if you talk about anything else, we'll hand you your ass. And you think this is the only place that you have a fucking stand on. That's why so many of these fucking 25 questions are, what's your favorite argument? Which argument can I use? Why don't you like this argument? And shit like that. You know what I mean?
2. Calculations indicate that if the strong nuclear force, the force that binds protons and neutrons together in an atom, had been stronger or weaker by as little as 5%, life would be impossible. 3. Calculations by Brandon Carter show that if gravity had been stronger or weaker by 1 part in 10 to the 40th, then life-sustaining stars like the sun could not exist. This would most likely make life impossible.
Would it, though? Would it? I always love it. Well, the calculations show, but we don't have all the numbers, so pretending that the calculations are right is silly. But, how about this? What if gravity was weaker? What if gravity was weaker? But what if, because the universe is reactionary, the other forces accommodated that by changing their strengths in proportionate measure? What would happen then? What? All the proportions would be the same? So maybe there's actually a possibility that the universe would still exist in its current form? It's just the proportions and the numbers would be different? And how would you know? How would any of us know? You see, the thing is even what we make up for what all these things are and what their actual... They're all based on what we think they are and the numbers we give them. Right? Us science-minded people know that these are only our approximations for the time, knowing that things might and probably will change. Right? But still, none of these theoreticals matter because 1 in 1 chance happened that we're here and this is going on right now. Right? Working out probabilities, like I said before, it's just there to dazzle people because they don't know better. And it's kind of sad.
4. If the neutron were not about 1.001 times the mass of the proton, all protons would have decayed into neutrons, or all neutrons would have decayed into protons, and thus life would not be possible.
But what if protons were just a little bit different? Well, which bit of the protons? Is it the up quark? Is it the down quark? Is it the gluon? Is it, like... That's the thing. It's not just changing a bit of it, right? It's which bit are you changing? And like, this is completely ignoring the fact that the universe might actually just, react to the difference in it. And yes, the universe might not look as the way it is now, but that's not to say that it would fall apart, because we don't know. If it's reactionary, it's really only one way it can exist, because the things are reacting to the other things when other elementary forces and particles and waves come in contact with each other. But that's the sort of thing that a science-minded person would think, not a fucking buffoon.
5. If the electromagnetic force were slightly stronger or weaker, life would be impossible for a variety of different reasons. Now, these are some of the kinds of facts.
That's muddying the water, my friend. These facts aren't provable, my friend. These facts are assumptions based on maths. String theory is based on maths. Not one shred of proof, my friend. Not one shred of proof. Not one string, if you will. Like, it's not a fact. It's an assumption. You know what they say about assumptions, right? You know what they say about assuming, right? Makes an ass out of you and me. Makes an ass out of you for doing it. And it makes an ass out of me because I've decided that I have to listen to it and react to it. Like and subscribe, everybody, please.
That are often used to make fine-tuning arguments. Some of the best arguments for God's existence according to almost everyone involved. So here's the question.
See? You know that bit before when I said, look, he's just asking so he can correlate data for later. Ta-da! And, the slew of videos that came before it. And I'm happy he's finally getting to the question. I feel like I've already answered it, but we'll see, right?
Are we wrong to think that this supports theism? If so, why?
Fuck. Yes, because it doesn't support anything. It's a bad argument. It's not a reflection of reality. This idea is fundamentally false because the universe is reactionary. We don't even have all the data to show anything you're saying. We have some maths based on some experiments that we know we're probably going to change in the future if we find some more fundamentally, more fundamental thing of the universe. All we have is, all you've stated for this fine-tuning argument is assumptions. There's no idea that the universe could even be another way because it is reactionary. And again, even if you want to say it's a good argument for theism, it doesn't support Christianity. It supports theism. So if you want to tell me why fine-tuning is for Yahweh, when Yahweh said that he let the waters come down from the heavens because he separated the waters from the waters, to make earth, because the sky is made of water, and how that concords with God making the world fine-tuned, then I'm all fucking ears, yo. So that was annoying, and hopefully I could walk again now and I can make normal videos. But we'll see. So, hiya!